Good morning, America. Oh, wait, somebody's already got that show, don't they?
Yeah.
Good morning, D3 Nation. We are live here in Houston, Texas. It's getting windy. It's getting a little dark in the sky, and we're going to give you a little bit of a preview, minimalist preview here. We'll explain a little bit why when we start the show. But, JB, you got in last night, or yesterday evening. We had some good barbecue already, as you showed everybody, with a couple of friends of ours that help out with 3rd Division. It's been a nice little time so far down here.
Yeah, it's just weird to think that in the course of the next 16 hours, it's going to go from about 72 or 3 degrees as it is right now to 31 this morning. There's going to be a huge temperature drop. They're even, freezing conditions here in Texas. They're not used to the chilly weather. But hey, we'll see if it affects the game. We also have rain in the forecast. It should stop by the time kickoff. Hopefully we don't have rain in the next 5 minutes.
Let's jump.
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
But wind gusts up to 30 miles per hour. We might see more of a running game tonight. We'll get into it. This is our Stagg Bowl 51 preview.
For season 17 of In the Huddle. JB just said there's about 50 people watching live right now. If you're watching live, go back to bed. What are you crazy? It's Sunday morning. What are you doing up? And that leads actually into one of our things that we've heard, some complaints. We just went to get our coffee drinks from a location not to be named.
Yeah, we're not sponsored by them, that's for sure.
Yes, they definitely took from us. We ran into a parent of a coach from North Central who was complaining about, my God, it's Sunday night. She told us some things we already knew, obviously, about this first time of this being out
had to wait
for
the game. Yeah,
but at the same time, she's right. A lot of people have been commenting about the idea that this is on a Sunday night. It makes it tough for travel purposes, and it might not have been the best positioning of the game. Friday night would have probably been the best optimal scenario for fans, at least. Or Saturday for that matter. What's your feel so far on that?
Well, I mean, the 800-pound gorilla or the elephant in the room is the fact that during this game is the number 1 seed NFL playoff matchup between the Vikings and the Lions. I mean, ESPN, the NCAA couldn't have done a worse job in scheduling this game as far as trying to attract an audience. Everyone is going to be watching that NFL game except for the real D3 diehards like us. It's just a shame because these young men deserve to have their chance for a spotlight, and that's what the old sort of Friday night Stagg Bowl matchups provided. It gave a national audience. Like a lot of people that I know back in Florida who've never seen D3 football before watch the Cortland North Central game, and they're like, "Holy cow, this game is great! These guys are amazing players. What action!" And we're going to miss all that with the scheduling tonight.
Okay, so let's go back to the slide we used last week for weather and see how it stood up.
The Huddle forecast.
Yeah, the AccuHuddle Huddle forecast last week showed this. 73 is a high, low 53. Let me tell you that we've already hit the high, I think, for the day basically here. You probably can see and hear some of the wind going on around us. We're using our hand mics to eliminate that noise for you folks at home watching this. Ultimately, this is going to be basically a high of 75, again, which we reached, and a low now of 41. Kickoff temperature is going to be in the mid-50s.
Yeah.
The end-of-game temperature is going to be in the mid-40s, most likely. Tomorrow, it's going to be 31 as a low. Mm-hmm. We are having a weather shift go on while we are getting ready for this. It is a 60% chance of rain now, and it's expected to be a half an inch of rain, but the upside here is that we will have the rain stop by around 6 o'clock, according to forecasts right now.
Just in the nick of time.
But, again, let's talk about the field conditions. This is a soccer pitch that they'll be playing on tonight.
It's not a football field.
So over at the stadium, again, Shell Energy Stadium, for those that aren't aware, they are going to be allowing warm-ups, obviously, starting around 5:30 local time. 6 o'clock local time is when the rain should stop. So we're going to see this thing start to get chopped up right away this evening.
Yeah.
When game time comes around, yes, the rain will have stopped, but if it's a half an inch of rain, I understand that they have some good undercarriages in some of these stadiums to filter away rain and water and everything, but still, it's not instant. I can tell you this from doing tournaments in Florida where they have a good undercarriage system. So it will still chop up things, and soccer pitches generally a little thinner in terms of the actual turf, and so you may see this thing get pretty well chopped up, and it may affect the game in terms of field conditions. What's your memory of playing on grass in these situations?
All I'm thinking about is if John Madden were still alive, and if, or maybe I think it's Chris Berman who used to do this, during the NFL recaps when they go whoop. Yeah, we're going to see that tonight.
You and me may be doing that on the sideline.
Yeah, I'm kind of regretting that I wore my brand new Christmas shoes here because they're probably going to get ruined from the wet and the grass. But yeah, we'll probably see some slipping. We'll see some guys maybe fumble the ball. It could be the wet ball drill out there. Yeah. Turnovers could be a big element in this game. And then, there's this wind gust of about 30 miles an hour that could affect the passing game. I mean, we have seen it affect certain quarterbacks more than others. We have two really good ones going tonight, so maybe not. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay, so first things first, we're going to remind you again that the game is Mount Union, number 5 in the D3Football.com poll, coming into the playoffs, and there has not been a re-rank until after tonight. There will be one final re-rank. And number 1, North Central. North Central is designated as the home team in this situation. Whether or not they wear black instead of a different
I think
color,
they're going to wear black.
I think you're right, probably. We're probably representing the colors right as we sit here today with our in the Huddle shirts on. Also, we should note to folks that presented by Jimmy Ghilardi, who is the son of John Ghilardi and an assistant coach at St. John's. Here were the finalists again: Zach Boyes, Destin Chance, Robert Corey, Luke Lanen, and Aaron Severson. Luke Lanen becomes the second two-time Ghilardi Trophy winner ever, Kevin Burke being the first in the last decade, and now Luke Lanen.
Yeah, kind of ironic. 2013, 2014, and now we had 23 and 24, exactly 10 years apart. We've had a back-to-back Ghilardi winner. So,
thoughts on Luke?
I mean, what can you say? He's been great. He has had an amazing career, and kind of like you said in ATN earlier this week, his only 2 losses in his career have been in this game. And so this is an opportunity for him to finish up his collegiate career with a win and a national championship to go 2-2. And they're already sounding off sirens here in the distance that they probably will have a parade for him and the Cardinals in Naperville if they win.
If they win, and if not, it's going to be a Lions where there will be a parade of sorts.
Yeah, and it's funny, Frank, because in a way this feels like almost a de facto kind of coronation moment for the Cardinals, right? Because they have been so dominant this season. We'll get into the statistics and all that. But at the same time, because of what happened last year, there is that little seed of doubt that everyone's kind of wondering, like, well, could Mount Union pull off a Cortland?
Sure they could. It absolutely could. And, I had a conversation with Ethan Greenfield, former Phenom running back.
Ghilardi Trophy winner himself.
Absolutely. And I called him out in the last show as part of the whole North Central discussion.
With love.
Fans discussion. And, very high level of respect I have for Ethan and vice versa. I appreciate him and for him saying that. But it came down to this, North Central is the favorite, okay? Yeah. But Ethan said, my point in my tweet was essentially Mount Union can do this. Yeah. There's no doubt they can. They are still that 800-pound gorilla in the Ohio football realm. Yep. And so, that's what the point he was making was. And my counterpoint is, of course, Mount Union is not the favorite in this game. They are the underdog, which is unusual. 5 straight Stagg Bowls will do that to you or for you as North Central being the favorite. And so that's kind of the interesting give and take is, North Central's the favorite, but Mount Union certainly can win this game. There's no doubt by anybody in this.
Yeah, and maybe perfect storm of these weather conditions, the water, the wind. I mean, Mount Union's attack, I think, tonight will really be centered around Tyler Echeverry and their offensive line. As we know, though, that there's, I think, Darnell Williams is also a great running back for them. We didn't get to it last week, but he was my special teams MVP for Week 16. He's a guy that you can count on for Mount Union to return the ball. The big reason why Mount Union beats Hopkins was that they usually had the ball around their 35, 45-yard line. Yeah, there he is, Darnell Williams. Keep an eye out for him, a senior running back. He scored a touchdown. He's a viable rusher, but he's also a great special teams player. And with the windy conditions, there could be some balls that get hung up in the air, short fields. There's a lot. Guys like Williams could be an X factor in this game.
I'm keeping this up here for a reason. As you said, we didn't really get to it unintentionally last week. But you look at the offensive MVP from the semifinals, the Mount Union offensive line. Great choice by you, because honestly, if not for them, Mount Union wouldn't be in this game. It would be Johns Hopkins. Yeah. Okay, there is no doubt that they protected T.J. DeShields marvelously 100%. All game long, and also gave plenty of openings for whoever the running back was at any given time. But, you look at running back central in Mount Union right now, and Tyler Echeverry is the name you've got to think about most, because of his performance with 3 touchdowns in that semifinal game. On the flip side, in the old something's got to give moment, North Central's defense was your MVP for Week 16 in the semifinals, and pitching the shutout against Susquehanna, big.
Impressive.
The defensive line of North Central is much different, I feel, than the defensive line of Johns Hopkins, and does that pose a problem here for Mount Union?
It does, if they can't handle Cliff Harris finalist John Sullivan. Number 92 is a big defensive tackle for NCC. He's going to be a pivotal player in this game, because he's one of those guys who occupies at least 2 blockers at a time. Big, strong guy, strong center of gravity, can move the pocket, create problems. That matchup to me, if for football purists, it always comes down to the line of scrimmage. And the one thing, in 30 plus years of watching D3 football, Mount Union has always had some of the best offensive line technique anywhere. I mean, at any level, college or pro. They're so fast off the ball. They move, they get things going. And then with a running back like Echeverry, who is very patient and will wait for these holes to open, I mean, he may not have as much time as he did against Hopkins because of the speed of the linebackers and the secondary of North Central, but that Sullivan, the defensive line of North Central versus Mount Union's vaunted offensive line, which is really, I think, the reason why the Raiders are here. I mean, earlier in the year, we were sort of doubting whether Mount Union was a true national contender. They were struggling to beat teams like Muskingum and these sort of 500 or sub 500 teams in their own league, and there was like, what's going on with these guys? Yeah. But all of a sudden, they got that week off, the bye week from the playoffs, and they came out, destroyed John Carroll 42-7, and have just not looked behind. The one concern I have about Mount Union, and maybe it'll be negated by this weather and the wind, is that they could not stop Ranello and the Hopkins passing attack.
No, they could not.
Their secondary was burnt toast all game, and even though we've seen Luke Lennon have some struggles in the passing game in the past, he kind of if he's under pressure, he sort of regresses a little bit to like a baseball technique throwing wise, and that which is a little iffy. We'll have to sort of see if guys like, I mean, there's no Kamitsky on this team. There's no Hardy. I mean, we've got Skokna is one
Skokna.
of Skokna. We got Skokna. We've got a few other players that have been kind of more like role guys. Can they create the matchups and get open like the Will Leger's of the world? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, here is, and we corrected as while it was on the screen, the win-loss record. Apologize for not saving that change. But as the wind picks up around here, 14-0 versus 14-0. 2 teams that got buys this season, unlike the CFP, where buys prove costly.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can again see an 80-yard differential in favor of North Central on offense overall. But the balance, the rush pass balance, which you would have maybe thought was more of a North Central thing with Luke Lannon's legs, ends up being a Mount Union thing more so here. Yards allowed, about 50 yards difference. So when you put it all together for yard differential, 160 for Mount Union, nearly 200 or nearly 300 for North Central.
Yeah.
But again, then you got to ask yourself, level of competition maybe is different between these 2 teams too. So maybe that identifies some differential there. TJ DeShields not with the gaudy stats because of the situation he's been thrown into here, around the Marietta game and all that stuff this season. Yep. Luke Lannon, obviously, 53 touchdowns total, 5 interceptions. The turnover margin, plus 16 North Central, was basically the best of the batch, I think we had.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Yeah, since the quarterfinals when we track it. And that point differential, plus 15, basically, between the two in favor of North Central. So, JB, the question again becomes, more or less, looking at stats, looking at paper here, can Mount Union win this game? What do they have to do to overcome some of those deficiencies that we just saw on the tail of the tape?
Yeah, well, I think what they're going to have to do is try to figure out a way to get over 100 rushing yards in this game, number one. I mean, you look at North Central's average of 85.7 rush yards allowed. That's really low. And when you got a team like Mount Union that can run the ball for 230-plus, something's got to give there. On the flip side, you see that the passing yards allowed by the Mount Union defense is pretty similar to what North Central averages, and it's kind of I don't know if it's a risky, I don't know, but if you want to challenge Luke Lennon to beat you with his arm, he can, and I do think it merits. I mean, he's the first touchdown pass that he throws tonight will be his 40th of the season, and I think will also set the national record for touchdowns, breaking what Braxton Plunk had done for Mount Union in the prior couple of seasons. So, I mean, chance for history for Luke. He's already made history by being the second ever two-time Gallardi Trophy winner. He's got one national championship under his belt. He wants to get that second one. Tonight's the night to do it.
We didn't bother teams for interviews during this time because obviously this is all strange to everybody, what's going on right now. Yep. Yes, it's the normal 2-day spread. They arrive on Thursday, actually 3 days. So when you think about they arrive on Thursday night and they play the game on Sunday night. But ATN had some of the interviews. You'll hear in the pregame show for D3Football.com some more of those interviews, I believe. So you'll want to stay tuned for all that. We're more or less here just give you a little bit of a teaser for the game here. But you also heard us do some under-over approach or guesstimates on different things. So let's do that ourselves right now, actually, before we actually predict the game itself. So looking at this crowd scenario tonight, as the sun tries to peek back through a little bit in the distance from us, what do you think the crowd number will be if you had to guess?
I mean, if we're lucky, maybe 600,000, my wish. Yeah, right. 600 or 700 people, probably.
You think it's going to be that low tonight?
Yeah, I think it's a Sunday night. It's after a long holiday season. You had Christmas kind of in the middle of the week. You had New Year's in the middle of the week. A lot of people have taken time off over the extended holidays. People are either flying from Chicago to get down here or flying from Ohio to get down here. I flew from Florida. Frank flew from New York. Houston is not exactly easy to get to.
No.
It's a couple hours, or at least 3-4 hours from most places. So,
and George Bush Airport, we learned yesterday, is not easy to navigate when you're trying to find your pickup.
I'm terrified about how I'm going to get out of here tomorrow morning. It's going to be 31 degrees, and I'll be at the crack of dawn. I'll be lucky if I make my flight. But yeah, it's so I think that will impact the numbers. I mean, we do know that the North Central Band will be here, so that will boost it by at least 100. And maybe there'll be some local interest. Who knows? Texas is a very football-friendly state, so it might get some casual fans. I've heard, with the guys who were hanging out last night, it does sound like some players from Hardin Simmons or UMHB might be coming in.
Who knows? Some Trinity folk might be here too.
Yeah.
Tonight.
So we could be surprised. It would be nice if we got like 1,000 to 2,000 people here, but we'll see.
Give me your specific number if you had to put a guess straight down on it.
1,650. Let's hope for that.
You're going to go over 1,650, but you said 600 to 700 now.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to be optimistic, Frank.
Okay.
Glass half full.
1,375 is mine, for the same reasons you brought up here. So we'll go with that. Okay. Number of passes thrown by Luke Laney. You heard my under-over on that. So my number was basically 16 passes thrown. The elements weren't known so much when we did the recording on Friday night of that. I will keep it there, but I feel more comfortable about the under suddenly because of the win situation. What are you thinking about number of passes he throws?
I'm going to take the over just because of how bad Mount Union secondary played against Hopkins.
So you think they're going to try to exploit that again?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, well, maybe early on, if the wind is bad in the first half, we might not see as much passing. But I could see in this game as it goes on that they might take some shots and really try to test that secondary. It's a weak link for Mount Union for sure. And if I was Coach Spencer, I would try to look to exploit it. I mean, like I said before, we don't have the Kamitskis or Hardys on that NCC roster, but if those guys are playing for that team, they're good, and so they're going to be open in certain ways. So why not really try to take advantage of the same? I mean, Cole Crotty had over 100 yards receiving,
160. I want to say
he was just destroying that secondary. And
he could have had more actually too, because he dropped a couple key passes.
Yeah, he did. So he could have had 200 yards against that Mount Union secondary. So if I'm the Cardinals, I was like, hey, why not? Let's take some shots. You've got a quarterback like Luke who can throw the ball hard, even in the wind. So why not? Over.
Duration of game. With the weather situation, things could be shrunk. By the way, how many passes? Give me an actual number.
I'll say 20.
20, okay, so there you go. Okay, duration of game. Now, granted, it's a national broadcast with plenty of commercials on ESPN, but, you've got the new timing rules now and everything else in D3. What do you think the timing will be of this game from kickoff to final gun?
Well, if the weather comes into play and shortens the game, I would say maybe like 2 hours and 40 minutes. But with the commercials and everything, I'll go closer to like 2 hours and 55.
I'll go 3:05.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the commercials play that big of a role in a Sunday night game on ESPN.
Yeah, 3 hours is probably a safe bet.
Now, there is a possibility for lightning at some point today. We don't think it will be during the game.
Is in the forecast.
Yeah, but so anything we see might affect pregame at the worst in this situation. It will not necessarily affect the game per se, but we'll keep you posted on that on Twitter as well if things change. I feel like I missed my calling as a meteorologist.
I know, right?
But anyway.
You're a mayor instead, you know.
Yeah.
Politics in your 40s.
Let's take a look at, let's see here. Number of rushing yards for Tyler Echeverry.
Well, if he has a good game, that would probably put him in like the 110 range. I don't think he's not going to have 183 like he had against Hopkins. There's no way this defensive line is too good. But if he can break 100 yards rushing, then Mount Union has a chance.
So you're going to say 110?
110.
I'm going to go slightly higher than you, about 125.
Okay.
I think that he's going to get a lot of carries in this game. I think the weather's going to dictate that fact. And while they may not be as effective and as potent as the carries had in the Johns Hopkins game, they're going to have to give him the ball probably a good 27 times or so in this game is my guess.
Yeah, well, I feel too though that we could see some packages with Tyler and Darnell in where they sort of fake one to Tyler and they give Darnell the ball to try to throw off the defense. So his carries might be affected by that, but we'll see.
Now, the Noah Boudry question that we had,
right.
It becomes a question, I think, again, of if they're more laden to the run because of the weather, because of the field conditions, so wind and poor field conditions, does he see more snaps? So maybe my number was wrong on Friday because we didn't really fully appreciate the wind aspect affecting the pass game tonight. So now, having heard that, you're going to say how many snaps will Boudry take?
I think he's going to have over 10 to 15 probably.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I think he's going to get in this game, and I think they're going to do that on purpose to try to throw something at NCC that they may have not thought of. I mean, we did see him on those fourth down packages, and ironically, even though Hopkins kept stopping the Raiders on third down, they couldn't stop him on fourth down. And so I think that's going to be a wrinkle in Coach Dart's game plan that could surprise some folks.
Okay. I'm going to probably lean more towards 7 at this point than the 4 I think I originally had said on ATN.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be that much. And again, I do put out the warning about what I said about Linfield. I know Pat Coleman gave me a little, gruffness about this.
Well, he does that he just does that in general. I mean,
hey, no. But the point being that it does affect the cadence. It does affect the offensive line when you keep changing quarterbacks.
The wet, slippery ball, it could be a problem.
That too. Number of rush yards for Joe Sacco, who appears to be fine here.
Yep.
Go ahead. North Central's running back, or a marquee running back, out of a bunch of them that they have right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I think back on the Hopkins and some of the other games at Mount Union, they've done a pretty good job keeping the rushing to a minimum. It's really the pass defense that's their problem. So I think Sacco probably get close to 100 yards, but maybe not. I mean, they'll probably have to have some other guys in there to sort of mix things up, like Coleman or a few other players. So maybe I'll say like 87 yards. I really feel like the key to this game for North Central is going to be the pass.
I think Sacco has 110 on that side of the ball.
He can break one for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, here's an interesting question. It's not necessarily an under-over type, but will Luke Lena have more yards passing or rushing in this game?
I think passing. It's like I said before. I mean, Mount Union's rush defense is pretty sound, but that secondary scares me, Frank. I think they're in trouble.
I think rushing, and I think because we know they're going to be using a spy most likely on him, I think here's what's going to happen. I think the tight ends are going to become the spy breakers on this whole situation tonight, where they're going to engage with the spy if they can identify who it is at any given time, and that's going to free up Lanen for run lanes on the outside. I think that's how they're going to try to respond to it. So I think Lanen will have opportunities to break off larger runs at certain points in this game.
We saw that in Salem.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I would probably think that he's going to have in the range of about 120 yards himself on the ground, and because of the wind, I don't think he'll reach 120 yards passing, which means that will it be a low-scoring game? It's time for actual predictions for the game. You saw mine already, 27-17 in favor of North Central, going away at the end. I think this will be a close game for most of it, and we'll finally break apart at the very end of the game. We haven't heard yours so far, though. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny. I kind of joked in our last show, when you look at the tail of the tape at the very bottom, the point differential, there's 42.5 versus 27.21. I was like, yeah, 42 to 27 sounds good, But I the more that I think about this and the way it's shaping up with potentially the slippery grass, the wind, all this stuff really does point to a lower scoring game. The last time they played, it was 28 to 21. I think this year, compared to last year, it seems like North Central's kicking game is a little more solid. I did look up their kicker hasn't missed a PAT or I think a field goal at all in the playoffs.
Although the surface, again, could be interesting for them.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe more like 31 to 21. I think Mount Union will score at least a few touchdowns in this game. But when you have a team that averages 500 and almost 50 yards of offense and almost 54 points per game, things are leaning towards North Central, and I just feel like they have the deeper roster. I mean, 38 seniors. It's unheard of in at almost any level of football, to be honest, because guys either get injured, transfer, this and that. The fact that they've kept this group together for such a long time is really amazing, and so I think that's going to be the difference, that they have that depth, experience, and they just know how to win.
Apparently we should do Sunday morning shows more often, looking down at our Twitter feed right now.
300-something. Hey, guys.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Grab your coffee. We got a couple more minutes here.
Ding.
Not quite the margaritas we were enjoying last night. I was, at least.
Actually, maybe one of the things. What do you think the over/under on doinks might be tonight? Anything bouncing off the field goal posts?
I think it's inevitable if the wind's there, because you take.
I guess you have to put the over/under at 1, right?
Yeah, 1.5. We'll go there. How's that? But it will be under, but it could be 1 definitely. I think if it's 1.5. So okay, JB. Overall assessments here. You heard discussion about the NPI. This season is about to come to a close. The 2024 season closing in 2025. We've never had that situation.
Yep.
I'm going to give you the opportunity for things you liked and didn't like about this season. Again, you heard some of our picks the other day. I'll give you a chance to give your own assessments here.
Well, one of the things that I liked, obviously kind of agreeing with all you guys on ATN, was the wider field. I love the fact that we had a couple of Region 2 teams in the semifinals. The way things shook out, the Susquehanna run, beating St. John's and Bethel. I still feel like if you're a top 25 voter and you don't have Susquehanna over St. John's, there's something wrong with you. I'm just going to put that out there. They did win that game on the road. Just because they had a bad game against North Central doesn't mean that they're not a top 5 team. And so I like the sort of the diversity that we saw. But at the same time, if I want to nitpick, North Central did not have to go through a WEAC team. They did not have to go through a MEAC team. They really almost didn't have to play anybody from the power conferences, traditional D3 powers, to get here. Mountain Union did play a couple of those powerhouse conferences on their way, and so maybe Mountain Union's more battle tested. But I honestly just feel like with the depth and experience of North Central, this is, like I said before, I'm trying not to make this feel like it's a coronation moment, but it kind of does feel that way, kind of a conclusion of a long run. 5 Stagg Bowls in a row, potentially now 3 out of 5 years they win the championship. But we'll have to see how it shakes out.
It was for Mount Union. It was John Carroll, Carnegie Mellon. Third game was Salisbury. Thank you. Fourth game, Johns Hopkins.
Yep.
So they got mostly an East flavor. Nothing really Midwest. For North Central,
but that's common for Mount Union. They've had those types of seedings for 10 or 15 years now.
For North Central is Whitworth, followed by, we're doing this from memory right now because I don't have the bracket in front of me. Second round, well, we know Springfield was the third round.
I'm
trying to think. Hope was the second round. Thank you. Then Springfield, then Susquehanna, and now championship game.
Yeah.
So interesting that you're right. The roads didn't lead in the ways you would have assumed these two teams would have at least had a little flavor of along the way.
All we heard about all season is how great the WEAC is, and then they're out of the tournament after the second weekend. And neither of these teams had to play them to get here. So
yeah, absolutely right about that. It's been a great season. So here's what's going to happen tonight from us. I will still be assisting on the sideline with D3Football.com, but JB may be doing a Twitter space that I might join in on at certain times as well throughout the night. So we're going to try to be a little unconventional in this unconventional playoff setup that we have tonight. No video allowed by us, and we fully embrace that. We understand it's on ESPN, and we're not going to put video on Twitter, but you might
Pictures.
get a photo or two because that is allowed.
My job tonight is a photographer, so I'll be running around with my phone doing what I did at the Stagg Bowl, and I have to say, even though I'm not really good at it, I got some great photos during the game last year. I mean, the Aviavo touchdown with I got the embrace at the end with Coach Fitz and Zach, which was one of my all-time favorite moments. Hopefully we get some more of those shots, and wait till you see what Sparkle Man has in store for you, because I've seen the jackets.
It's in the closet area.
Holy smokes. And if you haven't donated yet to the GoFundMe Sparkle 2024.
Capital S.
Yep, capital S. Please do. We all have family members that have struggled with cancer or friends. It's the quarterbacks versus cancer cause is something that we're trying to support here, and it's something that, especially for me, my mother-in-law is fighting cancer right now, and I'm sending my love to her. It's just something that just affects too many families, and so if you have even the smallest, $5, $10 or whatever to donate, that'd be great. We're a little more than halfway to our $3,000 goal.
$1,625, I think, coming into this.
Yep. So please try and be generous. It's for a great cause. And if you have a dad, a football fan, or whatever, they make these great T-shirts that are real soft. Great cotton. I wore mine on my flight out here to Houston. I know Pat and Greg have theirs. I imagine you probably got one as well. Even though Frank will be decked out, I may actually bust out the Allie Morpet jersey because I might need it just because it'll be freezing for me from Florida at the game. So you might see me in the 74 out there. We'll see if ESPN notices too.
To give, go to gofund.me/Sparkle2024 with a capital S.
Yep.
Again, gofund.me/Sparkle YouTube.com/Sparkle 2024, capital S and Sparkle.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Appreciate your donation, by the way, too. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
I know you felt you owed a little bit for a commitment you had made earlier in the season.
Yeah.
But as I get ready to sneeze here, maybe that's the perfect time to start ending the show. No, but folks,
we're outside.
We've enjoyed this. I think we've mismarked the show as the 38 show. It's the 39th show of the season, I believe. Yeah. And we will be doing also with our friends Zach Vargas and Riley Conley assisting us some post-game interviews on the field as well after our cool-off period.
These cool microphones.
Yeah, we will be ready to go. And again, thanks for all your viewership throughout the year. Yeah. It was actually heartening to see that number of viewers that we have here. Because as we go through the playoffs, we notice a drop-off that a lot of your teams are not in the game and that you don't have the connection to it anymore.
Yep.
We're heartened that you will have good viewership of the game itself based on this. We want to do this before 1 o'clock Eastern time so that we're not interfering with your NFL viewing pleasure. And I think it shows that you want football content, but then you're going to go and hunker down at your favorite eatery or establishment and watch some great NFL action. Have fun with that. We will see you or talk to you in some format or another. It's 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Look all night for Twitter and all afternoon for Twitter updates from us. Thanks again, and we will talk to you on the other side of what should be, I think, a very good Stagg Bowl 51 tonight.
51.
See you, folks.